I was actually about to drop this video about female cops after watching that Vice episode on policing in America, which was actually a damn good panel. Um, but there was only one female cop up there, and there was a part of the show where the conversation kind of went left. About women being police officers and them getting tossed around like rag dolls, and then these ideas that women are going to come in and manage, in areas in which they don't really participate or can't participate. And then it's offset by the idea that they're negotiators and men are brute strength. And I'm like, here we run dangerously close back to the women are the intellectual class and men are just brute strength. And I made a video addressing that. And I'll upload that probably after this video. But I got a serious question now that, since I made that Grandmaster J is a fraud video. That video has 10,000 views and I only have 2,500 subscribers. So, whether it's YouTube algorithms or whether that video is getting passed around, I really wish people would go to the complete video because, like I said in the video, the video had two parts to it. There was all one video when I recorded it, but I got a phone call and I got interrupted. And when I'm recording and I get interrupted, it breaks the video apart. Not all the time, but sometimes that's what I think I hit stop that time, but it ended up messing it up, so it split it up. So I forgot to put the two files together. But anyway. I put the complete video on this and just gave it the same title. But I was asked a serious question because a couple of white guys took issue or they got triggered with me seemingly putting the Boogaloo Boys, the Three Percenters, and the Oath Keepers in the same category as white supremacists. And I'm going to address that, but I'm going to address the first question, which is in reference to what I've always said, which is if African Americans are an ex-slave population. And this white guy who sent me a message, he asked for my email. I gave him my email. And then, he sent me this thoughtful, letter that it wasn't, or not letter, but email that was, it seemed like it had genuine, it was like a genuine question. So I'm going to take it at face value as a genuine question. But he brought up the point, and that's another thing, because he said things that make me know that he's listened to a number of videos before sending me that email. That's why I'm responding to it. Because I'm like, okay, these are my talking points. So it's not like he's just, hey, nigger, what do you say this for? Nah, it ain't none of that. So he brought up the point that I said African Americans should be, staunch advocates of the Second Amendment, and he wanted to know why that was not. Aside from the obvious of the fact that, this country has always tried to disarm black people, and the, first gun laws were designed to disarm black people. And now, liberals are using it against everybody. But, there's that fear factor, that a black man is not going to be treated if he carries a gun. And that still exists. It's pervasive. The idea that you're going to get slapped with the negative stereotype of black criminality, like what all the white conservatives run around screaming, what about Chicago? What about Chicago? So if you're a young black man with a gun, with a firearm, you could have it on you legally. And just like you saw down there in Alabama, what was his name? Was his name Bradford? What was his last name? I forget it. I forget his name. But the brother that was in the army, that there was a shooting in the mall. He pulled out his gun to see what was going on, and the cops came up behind him and shot him in the back of the head because they thought that he was the perpetrator. I can't say that wouldn't have happened to a white man, but I don't think anybody can deny the reflex assumption of black criminality when they see a young black man with a gun. It's just the way people, interpret it, the way people look at it. So, there's this rhetoric in the black community that says if you're a black guy and you're exercising your Second Amendment rights, you're more likely to get shot, or you're more likely to, end up being a target and things not working out for you, despite the fact that you did everything right and legally and whatnot. So it's better not to have a gun. Then you get the aspect of even internally in the community, the idea that, whenever, the only two people have guns in the black community, if they're black and they're a male, either a black cop or a black criminal, and that's it. And that's a direct result of, the economic decline, that has affected the black community. Everything that the black people have been denied access to capital, in the black community, denial of FHA loans, denial of, the Homestead Act. We weren't able to, get a land grab and gain capital from that, being discriminated in employment, deindustrialization in America, redlining, blockbusting, the dumping of narcotics into the black community via Iran-Contraing through, Ronald Reagan and Oliver North, mass incarceration, RICO charges with the 1994 crime bill. Over the course of, decades, you just have this poor, impoverished, single motherhood, community. And patriarchy is virtually all but dead in the black community. And this is the crux and the meat and the potatoes of what I'm about to say, because I've said this before in another previous video. Getting to the core of the issue, the reason why black people don't support the Second Amendment like white people is because the black community is not a patriarchy. It is arguably a matriarchy, because again, patriarchies do not result as a result of or come to be as a result of women taking over and pulling out their sword like Excalibur and decapitating males and acting and like a bunch of invading marauders. It's due to failed male leadership. Now, when I say failed male leadership, I'm talking about black men failed to thwart, the system of white supremacy in America. And I don't know how they could. White guys constantly say when people have a discussion about race war that black people, they would get handled, they would get dealt with, they would be eradicated, all that stuff. Okay, so what makes you think that black people were able to, even when they established thriving black communities, what makes you think that they would be able to stop, white people from coming in there and purging the shit? Black people were not able to stop Tulsa, Oklahoma. Black people were not able to stop Rosewood. Black people were not able to stop Elaine, Arkansas. And the other smaller, situations, the Red Summer and, summer of 1919, in Chicago, with the race riots and Elaine, Elaine, Arkansas, already said that, Omaha, Nebraska, Springfield, Illinois. I think there's another place in Louisiana, Thibodaux, Louisiana, the insurrection of 1898 in Wilmington, Delaware. Not Wilmington, Delaware, in Wilmington, North Carolina. What was it? OOC or something like that, Florida. I don't know how to pronounce that shit. With July Perry. So even when black people had thriving communities, because again, they weren't allowed to use white people's shit, white people came through and they burnt them out. And then tack on everything I just said about all of the, stuff that black people were denied, and yet and still black people still went off and, fought in American wars. And, Colin Kaepernick takes a knee to protest police brutality because, it's like America still gives us their ass to kiss, or its ass to kiss, and, white men all over, have a damn seizure. He needs to stand. He's disrespecting the flags, disrespecting the troops, all that shit. When black people have fought and died for this country, when they weren't even full recognized as full citizens. And white people have the audacity to sit there and talk about, who's American and who's not. You know what I'm saying? Let me see you go to work without getting paid or without being recognized and then tell me about how good of an employee you are. You know what I mean? Or have somebody talk about how terrible of an employee you are when you haven't been paid in several weeks. But anyway, getting back to the whole matriarchal role reverse setup in the black community. Bottom line is black men don't have anything to fight for. When you talk about white men and having to justify ownership of an AR-15, right? And they're talking about a tyrannical government and all that other shit. White men have families to protect. White men have patriarchal situations, which is all predicated on white men's financial ability to create a situation of dependency on white men from white women and children for their economic survival. Bottom line, white women and children are dependent on white men for their economic survival. Now picture being a second-class citizen in a country where you're denied access to capital and resources at the collective level. You're living underneath, apartheid. And then even after American apartheid is over, you can change the laws, but you can't change the hearts and minds of men. For decades, you had situations where, and even now, the same job, black men make such and such a cents on the dollar as compared to white men. Black men are less likely to be promoted and move up the ranks and stuff like that because they got to break through the old boy networks. And the only black men that are going to get through the old boy networks are not black men that, all have the mindset to benefit their own community. That's not the black men that white men are going to empower and put in positions of power and authority. They're going to put black men in positions of power and authority that espouse the system of white supremacy. Your sort of Sheriff Clark types and your Brandon Tatum types who both have white wives. OK, that's what white men are going to put up on a pedestal. They're not going to put some black guy like Fred Hampton that's talking about, hey, I'm trying to fix the black community and we got to focus on resources being allocated towards the black community and everything I do is going to benefit the black community, despite all the bitching and complaining that white men love to do when they want to talk about Chicago. You argue that black men need to, you need to fix your own situation and personal responsibility and clean up Chicago. And then when black men focus on themselves, even sound like they're focusing on themselves, y'all come through and file complaints about reverse racism because you're so concerned about either what you think you're not getting or what you think you're entitled to or what you think the black guy is getting more than you, despite you all being, the dominant members of this society. You can tap into everything that you want to tap in. When you go to a job interview, 9 times out of 10, the guy behind the desk is white. When you go to the bank, 9 times out of 10, the guy behind the desk is white. Okay, any opportunities, business deals you want to tap, you're dealing with a population of people who already control the overwhelming vast majority of resources in America and always have. And then dare a black man point that out, you jump up and gaslight him and claim and act like he's crazy or he's lazy or he's making it up or he's making excuses. It's just like, I was talking to a white colleague of mine talking about the creation of the suburbs. The suburbs were created. FHA loans and all that shit the government did after World War II to create Levitt towns that black people were excluded from, then tackle on all that redlining. And we're only giving loans to people in this area. Knowing damn well when you go out and you go for a business loan, one of the things that they leverage against you is what? The equity in your home. So, but if you're relegated to a shitty community that the bank has already deemed of no value or it won't appreciate or whatever, and you're trying to start a business and the bank won't give you a loan, how can you fix your community if you can't get the capital to get the business loan in order to establish businesses in your community for yourself? Or you end up with situations where, as I've talked to people before about this. They took all the vocational programs out of the inner city schools. The wood shop, the mechanic or carpentry, and the mechanic shop and everything. And they say, oh, we can't afford it, right? But the unionized labor, were the labor unions, like the steel workers and all that other shit, or other contractors, whether it's electrical engineer unions or, contractor associations and whatnot. They don't want those black kids getting those skills, because if those black kids are getting those skills, then those black kids would grow up to be, men who cater to, their own community. Maybe they could, maybe they couldn't. But at the end of the day, there would be competition. And I'm saying maybe they could, maybe they couldn't, because if you already have a community that's impoverished, right, there's not going to be any renovating there. There's not going to be any, it's like a Home Depot and shit. They don't put Home Depot in the ghetto. They put Home Depot in white affluent suburbs where people are like, white men are trying to appease their wives because she wants new granite countertops and she wants stainless steels and appliances and shit like that. All that shit costs money. So they got good jobs, and therefore, they can buy the appliances, and therefore Home Depot knows that that's where they need to be. So the people that are in poverty, like, there's nothing that's coming in there that's turning that situation around. And the idea that, oh, these people just need to have the right mindset and they'll just magically turn around, that's bullshit. Because the white middle class was created. It was created. I keep having to remind white men that they had to fight for full medical and dental and all the health care and shit that they got, and daycare and everything. They had to create child labor laws because, the fat cats on Wall Street back at the turn of the century, of not, this century, but last century, and what would that be? The 19th century, they were, what were they doing? They were, having children, work and not go to school. They had to create laws to make sure that children went to school. So again, that tells you what the white elites really think about y'all. But y'all don't pay attention to that. I was explaining to somebody, I actually sent them a video of, I think it was the destruction of the American dream or something like that. It had something to do with suburbia. It was a video on YouTube. I'll put the link in the description box. Says right in there, okay, when they were building all these suburbs, right? Again, tapping into the money and all that. And notice they created the suburbs, these white elite people, they created the suburbs and then later on demolished the suburbs through blockbusting, where they were getting off over on both people. They go look up some videos on YouTube about blockbusting. It wasn't just black people who were getting fucked over, it was white people getting fucked over too. And again, that was coming from white men, who live in some, big ass house, with all type of, stone walls and shit like that. Those were the guys that are living on the main streets and the main strips and that side of town that's so nice. They were the ones that just made off like bandits, fucking people over, just like you saw with the 2008 financial crisis and all them people coming down with golden parachutes. But instead of being focused on them, you always focused on black people. You focused on the niggas. You focused on the powerless group, not the people fucking you over. Them people those bankers and all that other shit that were blockbusting, they went in there and they they set it up like, oh, we're going to pay this black lady to ride a cart through the neighborhood. Then we're going to scare all the white people, tell them that blacks are moving in and that their property values are going to depreciate. Then they get the white people who paid for their houses, to get them to sell the house at half of what it was worth. Then they would sell the house to a black family and charge the black family more than what the house was worth. And then at some point, the black family probably couldn't pay off the house. And then they would reclaim the house. So they would get money off of the front end and the back end. You know what I'm saying? And y'all should be having, those white folks prosecuted and everything else. But nope, what was you focused on? You was focused on the black people. You were focused on the black people being upset and out there rioting in the late 60s and whatnot because of police brutality. Same thing we're talking about here in 2020, because of the inequity that was going on. You go and you focus on them. You don't focus on the people that make all the decisions, have all the power, control all the banks and the financial institutions that look like you. You focus on the black people. So, getting back to the whole, black men not supporting the Second Amendment or the black community not supporting the Second Amendment. Right now, currently, black men don't have anything to fight for. I mean, straight up. The guys that are going out there, even with the NFAC, how many of those guys really got stable foundations and families at home and everything else? How many of them? If they really did, chances are they wouldn't be out there. It's kind of a situation of, hey, I got my guns, and if somebody comes over here and, starts some shit, then that's when I'll deal with it. But all that grandstanding and going out there and marching and everything else, you're not going to see black men that are gainfully employed, out there. And 9 times out of 10, those black men don't even live in the black community. They live in the white community. So, when you talk about the black community, and I've brought this up many times about how the black community is the canary in the coal mine. The shit that the powers that be do to the black community first, eventually it comes around, to the white community. So, right now they're pushing all this LGBTQRXYZ shit in the black community and all that. And again, it's come around to the white community. They did the same thing with the hashtag Me Too, started with, black men and street harassment, and eventually it came right around to the white community to where, now you started seeing, powerful white men be taken down by, accusations with the witch finger. You see? And see, that's the whole why it's such bullshit. When it comes to, the rhetoric of these, groups that want to claim, that they're all about America and they're all for America and all that other bullshit. But again, when shit happens to black people, they're silent. They're silent because they're, they think they're either getting over, or again, they don't care whether, it hurts black people as long as it doesn't hurt them. I hear all this talk. When it comes to these Second Amendment people and the Oath Keepers and the what do you call it? The Boogaloo Boys and what's the other faction? The 3%ers. Give me liberty or give me death. Right? The tree of liberty must be refreshed with the blood of patriots and tyrants. Right? Praise the Lord and pass the ammunition. Right? They talk all this stuff about, what it is to be an American, what it is to be a patriot, and we got to have all these guns to fight tyranny. Then when tyranny actually happens, y'all ain't nowhere to be seen. Y'all ain't nowhere to be seen. It's blue lives matter. And again, black people, we already know what it is. First off, it's not cool to claim or say that you're a white supremacist these days. So they don't do it. So now it's about being an American or being a nationalist. And so white people hide their racism behind patriotism. So now that's what it's all about. Blue lives matter, all that shit. Notice it's always blue lives matter whenever the situation involves a black man. It's blue lives matter. Just knee-jerk reflex reaction, blue lives matter. But then when you end up with a situation where the white cops are fucking with other white people, then all of a sudden y'all talk shit and talk crazy like you getting ready to go out here and shoot cops. Y'all out here, talking about, one more step, one more itch, pack your bags, like James Yeager said, when the shit is affecting you. But when it affects somebody else, when it affects your fellow Americans, y'all don't give a fuck. And so black people are tired of playing these fucking games with you and using, soft speak and all that. And acting like, oh, well, I'm not saying all white people and da-da-da. Man, fuck it, all white people. Fuck it. Because, it's just like what people say about cops. It was just a couple bad apples. No, they're all bad apples. If the good cops don't say shit, if they don't correct the shit. And the same thing goes for white supremacy. If all the good white people ain't going to say shit, they just as bad and they in the same category as the white racist and the white supremacist. And that's just facts. So you ask why, people put them in the same category, or I put them in the same category. And I do recognize, that there's differences, but it's like, again, mileage may vary. You can't tell me that you don't have racists in the three percenters. Just like I can't tell you that you don't have people in the NFAC that really can't stand white folks. And then that's another conversation that we need to have, because it's like with white people have been convinced. It's like if you believe that black people have been conditioned into believing that they are inferior, you have to believe that white people have been conditioned with media and propaganda to believe that they are superior. And so, as I said in my other video, white people operate largely, based on fear. What did Yoda's quote say? Let me find Yoda's quote. Let me find this quote. I'm gonna find this quote. If the internet works. Where's that quote? Here's Yoda's quote. Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. Right? That's what Yoda said. And, when it comes to white folks, the white elite have done a marvelous job at tricking you all and throwing up the boogeyman black man in the smoke screen to get you to be focused on black people as opposed to being focused on the people that hold all the cards and hold all the chips. Just like I was saying about that whole, the suburban, watch that documentary. What is it called? The Destruction of the American Dream, Suburbia, or something like that. I'll put the link in the description box again. But I'm saying right in there, it talked about how, they tore up, they bought all the trolley car companies and then basically shut down the companies. So you had like GM and other companies. Ford went in there and bought up all the trolley car companies and then, tore up the rails and shut down the trolley companies. Why would they do that? To force everybody to buy a car. Okay, to force I mean, you got to think about the 50s and how rich bankers and whatnot became wealthy. You really got to think about that. Because, it's just like when you hear the MGTOWs, they talk about feminism and how things have changed and, boys are failing and girls are, surpassing and all this other stuff, right? Which, again, we all know on both sides, black or white, that's going to be the demise of society. Because if you have all these failing boys, then the only thing you can do is build more prisons. And then that's the new scheme, mass incarcerate all these men. And then, we'll be able to basically, again, have, a second version of slavery going back to the 13th Amendment. Right. And, so bringing women into the work market, right? In the 1950s, a man could, work at General Motors and, buy a house, have two cars, his wife's a stay-at-home wife and send his kids off to college. And a man could do that off of his salary alone. What about 2020? Can that be done? No. So women entered the market and now there's no option. You know what I'm saying? For the vast majority of Americans, a single income household is like impossible. But yet 1950, it wasn't impossible when it was just men working. So if you really look at it, men make less money than they did then. Forget what the actual number is because you got to adjust for inflation and all the other shit. But I'm saying a 25-year-old man today cannot support a family of four like a 25-year-old man could support a family of four in 1950. And yet, y'all running around talking about, the American dream and shit. When you talk about making America great again, you should be talking about that as opposed to going off on some racial shit. But again, you got to recognize who's screwing you over. Again, like I was saying about the trolleys, that the whole point of that was to get people in debt, get you to buy that house, get you to buy them cars. If you didn't have a car, we want you to buy a car. We want you to buy a car and live way out in the suburbs and buy gas every day and fill your tank up, as opposed to the way it was back in the day when everybody was living in the cities. And people were walking to where they wanted to go. Now, I'm not saying that doesn't have its drawback, because you can have overpopulation in a tight area in the cities and whatnot, but you got to look at it for what it is. It's more ways to make money. You see that with the social media now, with Facebook and Google and YouTube and all this other stuff, right? Advertisers selling your information, ways to make money. They're always trying to figure out ways to make money and extract money from you, or extract other money from other people who are looking to get you to purchase things. They have to keep that whole idea alive. But the thing is like, it's kind of like, it's like this runaway train. It's like a Ponzi scheme. It's gotten like too far ahead of itself. You got failing boys. You got a dwindling, economy. You got the college bubble, the housing bubble, all this shit, all this stuff. And notice, all this stuff I'm naming, it is not African. Everything that I'm naming is a white system created by whites that's basically fucking everybody over. But yet, your biggest concern is the niggas. Your biggest concern is the black people. You see what I'm saying? Or, let me be grammatically correct so I can appease my white overlords. Are the niggas. You see what I'm saying? But you focused on the black people. Black people got their whole own set of problems that, yes, are caused by the system of white supremacy. But we got a whole host of internal shit. And I don't even know if it can be fixed, just internally, because the black community cannot be fixed without an injection of resources. Period. If it took an injection of resources, FDR and the New Deal and all this other shit to create what was the white middle class in America in the 1950s, it's going to take the same thing for the black community. All this bullshit about, personal responsibility, pull yourselves up by bootstraps you don't have. That's just white people trying to come up with a way for it not to cost them anything. For them to just wave a magic wand or just speak, the black people being, a problem, a leech, a nuisance on the system, to just speak it away. It's not going to be spoken away, period. I mean, the bottom line is like, when you look at when you look at black people and you look at black people like they're the problem, it's like you should have either wiped them out or sent them back to Africa. But your ancestors didn't do it because they were too cheap to even do that. Like if you look at the people who are real white nationalists and racists, they're probably sitting there saying to themselves, God, I wish my ancestors would have sent all the Africans back to Africa. But instead, because, they didn't want to have to deal with that problem, they just let them be. And then we're just going to have them be second-class citizens and whatnot. And then, that doesn't work. And then black people was getting upset about that. That's what kicked off all the race riots in the 1920s and the 19-teens, right after World War I. Because motherfuckers was now going to go off the war and fight and listen to all this rhetoric about what it is to be an American and soldier, you did good and everything else, and then come back home to being disrespected. That's not going to happen. Not going to happen. Same thing with World War II. Same thing with Vietnam. Same thing with Operation, Desert Storm and Desert Shield. People are not going to go off and fight and do all this shit and contribute to America, and especially young men, because they don't know the history. They like, things are getting better, and they believe in the hype. And then when they get in there and they get out, then they see that that's not really what it is. It's not really a meritocracy. It's not really, share and all this other shit, and we're all Americans, we're all one. It's not really that. People always want to ignore the fact that, Micah Johnson was a veteran. Y'all want to talk about Colin Kaepernick disrespecting the troops. Talk about disrespecting troops. What was disrespectful to a black troop is him having to sit there and watch Philando Castile get a whole magazine dumped in his chest. Because notice, Micah Johnson shot the place up after Philando Castile was killed. After. Same with the brother in down there in Louisiana. What was his name? Let me see. Let me see. Police shooting. What was his name? No, it wasn't Alton Sterling. Alton Sterling was the one that got killed. Who was the one? Who was the one that shot police? I always remember his name, and then it's always at the tip of my tongue, and then I forget. What was his name? No. See, they keep giving me this Alton Sterling shit. Let me go to. Give me 1 second, because I want to get his name right. Anyway, y'all know who I'm talking about. I can't find the image. Yeah, here it is. The Baton Rouge shooting. What was the shooter's name? And one of the cops who did get killed in that, was a black man. But what was the police officer's name? And that's a whole nother thing, when it comes to, being police and everything else like that, it's about colors at that point. It's like gang violence, it's like, people get pissed off and then you get innocent people who end up becoming casualties of war. I cannot find his damn name. But anyway, if you go and you find what his name is, his videos are still up on YouTube. People have re-uploaded them. And when you go and you listen to, those videos, he's not talking crazy. He's not. As a matter of fact, arguably people would say he's making more sense than Grandmaster Jay. I mean, and that's another thing. The whole issue. It's like what Dave Chappelle said about calling people crazy. It's dismissive. White people did that shit with 9/11 and the terrorist attacks and whatnot. They hate us because they hate our freedom. They hate who we are as Americans. Really? That's why they hate you? Not because of 100 years of U.S. foreign policy? No. They hate you because of who you are as Americans. Again, dismissive. Or just saying they just hate us. They're crazy. And white people, they y'all love to do that. Y'all love to project. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how anybody can sit there and look at, the last 400 years of white people moving around planet Earth and all the fucked up shit that they've done and all the exploitative shit that they've done and sit there and say there's no reason why anybody should ever be mad at us. That's asinine. That's asinine. And again, that I think white people, by and large, they know that, which is why they're fearful of minority people. It's like the joke that C.K. Lewis made. It's like we're not just gonna go from number one to number two. Like we're gonna be like prostrate on the ground and get fucked in the ass. But until then, right? That was his joke. Right? Again, what do they say about jokes? Why are jokes funny? Because there's an element of truth to it. So, white folks, they love to come online and gaslight and play dumb, and just act like, everything's fair and it's a meritocracy. And the only reason why people haven't gotten ahead is because, they just don't try hard enough. And it's bullshit. I mean, you have organizations, muhaha organizations out here that meet and conspire, whether it's the Bilderberg Group or Trilateral or the Illuminati or whatever, or Freemasons. They all come together to have, their meetings and decide what's going to go down, in the world. Nations don't have friends. They do not have friends. They have interest. And they go around the world and they do things. You won't find out about it until decades later, until everybody that was involved is dead, and then you'll find that shit out. You know what I mean? Nobody knew that while, General Motors and, and the big three were sitting there telling, during the OPEC crisis, we're sitting there and telling, auto workers that they couldn't pay them, that they actually had stocks in Mitsubishi and Suzuki. You know what I'm saying? What is the Datsun? The Datsun, I think that was a partnership with Mitsubishi. Go look in that. This is right in the heart of the 70s. Right when they cutting jobs and shit like that. Again, that's your people, the people who look like you, who are making those type of decisions. And see, the reality is the white elite do not want there to be another Bacon's Rebellion. They do not want there to be a situation where, you have, working class blacks and working class whites coming together and forming Voltron. They do not want that shit. They want to keep the racial tensions going. You know what I mean? But the thing is like some of you all will acknowledge that, but you do it from the standpoint of trying to make it like it's even between black people and white people, and that all of black people's anger is somehow artificially manufactured in the media, and that's bullshit. Y'all know what y'all did. Y'all know what you engaged in. And that's another thing that white people try to do now. Like once you point out the muhaha-ness of the white elite, then they try to act like, yeah, black guy, I'm on your side. Because and it's like, nah, motherfucker, you was over there for way too long when you thought the shit exclusively benefited you. Now that you've become woke, now you realize that they're fucking everybody over, not just black people. Now you want to sit there and you want to talk about the system. It's like all these poor ass white people, that vote for Donald Trump, and they don't have a pot to piss in, but somehow they identify and put themselves in the same category as Donald Trump simply because they are a member of the same race. You see, that's not really something that black people can tap into. There's no black elite to identify with that controls the whole system from the top down. Like y'all have whole classes of white people to aspire to, from childhood. Hell, when you turn on the television, the first image you see as a child is He-Man and Superman, and then the presidents are always white. You know what I'm saying? Like I was an adult by the time I saw my first black president. Who's technically biracial, but again going into the system of white supremacy, that whole you can only be white in the purest sense of white, making whiteness exclusive. Don't matter how many non-black women or non-white women that white men run up in, those children will always and forever be labeled as not white. But yet you can be black and Japanese and you're still black, and you can be black and white and you're still black, and you can be black and Korean and you're still black and Arab and black and Indian and black and whatever other groups, and you're still black. Again, why do you think that that's done? It's done to centralize power and centralize wealth. Go and look at the miscegenation laws. You know what I'm saying? The miscegenation laws were not created to keep black men from marrying white women. All white men had to do was go out there and kill a black man. Miscegenation laws were created to keep white men from running up in them slave quarters and then thinking that they were going to leave all their wealth to their half, white children. Everywhere else in the world, they've tried to keep, this situation separate. When you look at, whether it's Argentina or whether it's, Dominican Republic or South Africa or Australia, go look at the movie called The Rabbit Proof Fence, with the Aboriginal, the half Aboriginal people, and how, they basically abducted the kids, and then they were trying to, educate them and make them, raise them as white, because they did not want to have a half class. White people understand that people can be racially swung. If they can be bred out, they can be bred in or bred, in the other direction. You know what I mean? If you had a person that was half white, half Aboriginal, and then, they married another white person, within 1 or 2 generations, after that, those kids are going to look full white. You're not even going to see the Aboriginal in them. It's not going to matter. You see the same thing going on with, look at Solio Dad O'Brien, and then look at her kids. If her kids go and get with somebody white, you're not going to know that those kids got any amount of black in them. You're not going to know. And so again, it's phenotype which matters. And with that, then again, you'll be able to maintain the system of white supremacy. You see, that's why they're giving Meghan Markle a hard time, but that's a whole different conversation. Can't have that. That undermines the system of white supremacy. And the British royal family is very much a part of the system of white supremacy. Power moves with power. That's how it works. But see, your average run-of-the-mill, everyday white American, the guys running around with Boogaloo t-shirts on and shit, or Hawaiian shirts, and man, they don't understand the complexities of that. Black people understand race and white supremacy, and white people, better than white people, understand themselves or the system of white supremacy. It's just something that they say. It's a talking point, but many of them don't truly understand the depths of it. They don't truly understand, how evil it is and the fucked up shit that it actually does. They don't understand that. You run it by, why would anybody do that? Why would anybody do that? As I've said before, white people, the people who want to talk about who's got higher IQs and everything, white people's IQs or the idea that they're just the superior intelligent race and everything is literally matched by their savagery. But they don't want to face the fact that they're more savage than many other groups of people, with all the weapons of mass destruction, the bombs, the Tomahawk missiles, the aircraft carriers, the thermonuclear bombs, the freaking what do you call those? The hyperbaric bombs. What do they call them damn things? All type of missiles, machine guns, all that stuff. All black on black violence. All the blacks are killing each other with guns they didn't design and they don't manufacture. With bullets that they didn't design and don't manufacture. Same in Africa. It's like Africans don't even manufacture their own weapons. Why, how did these people in the Congo who can't even afford shoes, how the hell did they get an AK-47? Because they were put there. Who put them there? And now you got the Chinese, they're trying to get in on, operating in the same manner as the system of white supremacy. So now the system of white supremacy is no longer just an exclusive about white supremacy. There's also the aspect of Asian supremacy as well. And because of the whole Wuhan virus and the whole, coronavirus situation and the way that the Chinese were just blatantly mistreating Africans, now the Africans are reevaluating their relationship with the Chinese. But they should have recognized that shit before. The Chinese are just trying to copy the model that they see the Russians doing. Because again, when you look at African militaries and you look at, the way that, their whole military structure is and the weapons that they use, they're all Russian. AK-47s, and now they got Type 56. There was a video from Tuna Chiki, and she had this video that was posted of, talking about Africans have their own militaries and manufacture. This bullshit. They don't manufacture shit. They got all these. First off, all the nations that actually do have some sort of manufacturing base as it pertains to the military are Arab states, like Algeria, freaking Libya, where else? North Sudan, these Arab state, Egypt, and then South Africa, which we already know is not owned, operated, and controlled by black people. So, I'm not even going. I hate when black people try to big up, black people from just by speaking it into existence. I'm like, no, we are behind. We are fucked up. That this needs to be fixed. You can't fix a problem if you don't even acknowledge that it exists. But this is the world that we live in. This is one of the reasons. Everything I just laid out is one of the reasons why I do not subscribe to religion or any Abrahamic religion or Christianity or the sweet twinkle of white Jesus. Okay, because the ground ain't opening up, no lightning bolts are coming down, none of this shit. I mean, even the stuff that people are talking now with the coronavirus and the million and one conspiracy theories about it, and freaking monetary systems and paying with your face and all this other bullshit. I'm like, yeah, it's a possibility. AI, everything, yeah, it's a possibility. And again, even if you go with the conspiracy theory, it's going to impact and affect everybody, not just black people, not just black people. And the fucked up part about being black in America is we're always the scapegoats for everything. Again, your everyday run of the mill working class white person, let some foul shit happen, let the economy collapse, let millions of dollars on Wall Street disappear. Somehow, some way, it all gets pointed and directed at black people. Somehow, some way. Like when white people are fucked up and they're suffering financially, black people are like prostrate on the floor. As we've seen with the coronavirus and the way that black people have been disproportionately affected because they're the ones that are working a lot of these low paying, at will employee, type of jobs, what do they call it? Essential jobs. Okay. So as a result, they're the ones that are coming into close contact, cashiers, things like that, people breathing up on them and whatnot. And then on top of that, because it being an at-will employee, you don't get full medical and dental. You don't have health care. If you get sick, you got to pay for that shit out of pocket. So then you'll have black people, oh, I can't pay for that. Oh, I'm not going to go to the doctor. Oh, all that stuff. You know what I mean? Or you end up with situations where, again, due to the broken conditions in the black community, you got a lot of young black people who don't live with their biological parents. They live with their biological grandparents or grandparent. And so, they're out there being exposed, working their cashier job. Then they come home after taking public transportation, touching all the rails and everything else, and then they come in and kiss, Big Mama on the cheek. And then Big Mama, 2 weeks later, she ends up, with, in serious respiratory distress. All of this is tied to, the history in America of black people's condition, even with George Floyd and how he even ended up in that situation. Long criminal history, most likely raised in a single mother home in poverty in Texas, where he's originally from. Leading him to a life of crime. He moves to freaking Minnesota after spending many years in prison, and he's a drug addict, and it's like, and then it's, you get to all this over policing and shit in poor areas, and then people justify it with, well, that's where all the crime is. Of course, that's where all the crime is if you got this many poor people. You put them there. You created that situation with urban renewal and eminent domain. Like, white people create these problems and then they just like wash their hands of it and then blame the victim, blame it on the people. And most white people, they don't even know history enough to realize this. I mean, there are plenty of videos and documentaries on YouTube that talk about policies that were put in place to make things happen. It wasn't like this white people, they run around and they believe that somehow, people just ended up where they ended up. And that's bullshit. It's bullshit. White people didn't end up in the suburbs. They destroyed the damn trolleys to make sure that, hey, you got to use a car. You got to go out and buy a car. Now that you got a car, now we can, again, further the whole idea of going out in the suburbs and buying some farmer's land, telling him to kick rocks, and then building all these multi-divisions and then getting you to take out a 30-year mortgage. You see? And I don't even know what the mortgages were back in the day, but I'm saying, even with inflation and all that other stuff, at least the people, back then, they buy a house for $10,000 and, live in that house for, 25, 30 years. If I wanted to buy, a decent house now, like you start in the 200s. You know what I'm saying? Or in Jersey, forget about it. 300, 400. You want a new home? 400, 350 to 400. You want a new home. And then you got all these people, coming out of college. I mean, I don't even know why they have liberal arts degrees and freaking, underwater basket weaving. And that shit should be a crime. It should be a crime to have people spend, go to Ivy League schools, $40,000, $50,000 for degrees that aren't going to equate to shit. That's insane. Oh, what'd you go to school for? Oh, I went to school for literature. I went to school for philosophy. I went to school for communications. I went to school, for liberal arts. I went to school for art, literally art, like people saying and shit like that. Now I could see if you went to school for art and then, you got hired by Disney and you were an animator for Disney. Like I could see some shit like that. You worked for Pixar or some shit. Like I could see that. Yeah. But it better be a damn good school that's known for some art shit. Not just I'm going to go to school and I have a degree in some bullshit. That shit's criminal. And so now you got a whole, 2, 3 generations? No, let's say 2 generations. Right? Because I'm like in between the generations. Let's say 2 generations, of people who start out life in debt. And then you have, this whole situation where nobody wants to pay anybody and, everything's like, hey, if you really want to make money online. You better have some computer skills or some tech skills because if you have regular, hands-on skills, we're not paying you shit. And then everybody's suffering. Everybody's, see their quality of life dwindling, and then they get all mad and they get all agitated, and then they begin to blame each other. And with black people being a minority in this country and always classically being, the scapegoat on shit, we got a lot to worry about. Because it's only a matter of time. It's the same thing that the guy with the funny mustache, did over there in Germany, creating propaganda against a group of people. When you start hearing that rhetoric, when you start hearing the rhetoric of, those people are the problem, this, that, and yeah, that's tenderizing you for genocide. That's the reality of that shit. Because again, the elites they don't care who gets thrown underneath the bus, as long as you ain't looking at them. And white people, they've bought into white supremacy. They have a vested interest in maintaining the idea of white supremacy, even if the reality is that classism comes before racism. So in the process, they're getting fucked over and they don't even recognize it, or they don't want to recognize it. Again, it's like, remember when Tim Wise made that point? He was like, y'all bitching about, this over here. It's like you need to look in the mirror in terms of who's digging in your pockets, who just made your 401k disappear. That sure as hell wasn't black people, or who made, the equity in your home basically crash and fall to zero. That wasn't black people, or who took your job and took it overseas. And now, all the, those products are being made in China or being made in Mexico. And then they're only being assembled in America. That wasn't black people. As I've always said before, if you go to Europe, before Europeans left, Europe, it was a classist society. And the vast majority of first off, America was a penal colony. The first Americans that came here, they motherfucker be sitting there before, he stole a loaf of bread and shit like that. And, the guy with the wig be sitting up there in court, hear ye, hear ye. You know what I mean? And then next thing you know, the guy's send him to America. America, no, any place but America. No. He's getting dragged out of the fucking court. This is that shit with Australia. Send him to Australia. No, not Australia. Anywhere but Australia. No. Go ahead, look at it. Type in America, penal colony. Type in Australia, penal colony. You know what I'm saying? Europe send its dirt to America and send its dirt to, Australia. Again, the European nations, they were classist, always been classist before race even came into the conversation. It was kings, nobles, and peasants. And now that the kings have essentially been done away with, the new oligarchy is the business class and the banking class. That's the new oligarchy. Those are the people who run shit. The big ass corporations. You got companies that got more money. That's why they're having all these court cases talking about, trust and shit like that. Same conversations they were having, with, Carnegie and JP Morgan and JD Rockefeller and shit like that. And, didn't you see that documentary, the Men Who Made America or whatever it was called? Yeah, they're having the same conversations with Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg and the dude that's in charge of Apple and Bill Gates. They're having the same conversations with them. The dude that's in charge of Google, same conversation with them. You see, they got more power than, again, what did the Rothschilds dude say? Give me control of a nation's wealth. I care not who makes the laws. Yeah, because it's all about the money. It's not about anything else. It's about the fucking money. So that shit is more important important in more ways than one. Not just as it pertains to patriarchy and the nuclear family, but it's also important as it pertains to, the powers that be. I mean, think about it. What sense does it make to have a system where you have a separation of government, where you have the judiciary, legislature, and executive branch, right? Because the founding fathers, they decided that, they wanted to have a balance of power, but yet there's absolutely no balance of wealth. There's absolutely no balance of resources. Because people, via the media machine and the propaganda that the elite people own, operating, and controlled, have convinced you, that, on one side, they convinced them that, it's all personal responsibility. And then on the other side, they convinced them, that they're just, these super victims, which is actually brilliant, and again, they're known for playing both sides of the fence. Because once you create a both sides of the fence situation, again, you've created the distraction away from yourself, because those two groups with completely different ideologies will now focus on each other and fight each other, as opposed to fighting the people who hold all the cards and hold all the goddamn chips. And what's crazy is, here I am as an African American with my tiny Negro brain and my inferior melanated being, and y'all motherfuckers haven't even figured this shit out yet. But yet you come on and, you get online and you find yourself diving into black conversations and just wagging your finger and shit, and you don't even know how the whole system works, and you're a fucking member of it. You're a member of it. You got the same genetic background of the people who run the damn shit, and you don't even know what the fuck is going on. Maybe you don't, because you don't have the view. You got to have the view from the bottom. And being black allows black people to have the view from the bottom. You don't recognize, it's like, I remember I was talking to my white colleague about this, and I said, it's like if you're near the top of the mountain, you don't look down, you just look up, and you see all the mountain, all the peaked snow caps, that are in front of you, but you're also standing in snow. You just haven't reached the top of that, snow-capped peak. But the people at the bottom, they see the whole mountain. They see the whole thing. They see it's like you get to see how the whole thing works, and you realize shit. The guy sitting up there close to the top, but he's not at the top. He may not even realize that he's a cog in the whole thing. He doesn't even realize it. The people at the bottom that are shunned out of it, they see the whole picture. Again, and I'm saying they keep hinting at this in these movies that they create constantly. In the Avatar and in Enemy Mine and in what other no, excuse me, not Avatar. I'm thinking something different. Because I talked about that with the whole, white people always staying at top, Avatar, Enemy Mine, Last Samurai, Dances with Wolves, and all that stuff. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about movies like Hunger Games and movies like Snowpiercer. Everybody's stuck in this this ecosystem that has to be balanced. And he fought his way all the way to the front of the train, only to be told some moo-ha-ha shit. And you see that same thing in Hunger Games, moo-ha-ha shit. You see the same thing in similar situation in The Matrix when Neo goes to talk to the architect. Again, these are the move. Like personally, I just think the white elite, there's some conniving, brilliant motherfuckers, because they'll put the shit right in your face. They'll let you see everything that they're doing, and because they already showed it to you, you won't believe that that's actually what it is. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. Because see, if they hid it from you, and then you actually, defeated the dragon and the wizard and went down to the 33rd level, if you actually just found, then you would be like, see, look, this is what it is. You know what I mean? But, the brilliant thing that they do is they put it out there, they put it on Front Street, and when they put it on Front Street, you could have passed right. It's right in the deck of cards. They actually gave you what is actually going on, but you just overlook it because you just see it as a card as any other card, all the other false cards that they threw in there, but the Joker card is sitting right there looking you in the face. Hell, when most people play a game of any card game, what's the first card that they toss out of the deck? The Joker. See, we won't need this card, throw that card. Actually, that's the card that tells you everything about what's going down. But anyway, I'm getting too deep for you all. So I'm pretty much done with this video. If I end up disappearing and whatnot after laying this video out, you know why. But that's that. I hope that answers, among other things, why the African American community, doesn't support the Second Amendment like that. We don't have anything to fight for. If you bust up the nuclear family, and men and women are not in agreement with each other, you don't have anything to fight for. There's no, we're gonna fight tyranny. What are you fighting tyranny for? You don't have a community that you're actually protecting. You don't have a family that you're actually protecting. You might get a gun to protect yourself, but there's not going to be any concentrated effort. You get what I'm saying? There's not going to be any militia, so to speak. Other than, just a bunch of guys that are in their fields. But like I said about the NFAC and, any black gun organization of armed black men, where is this thriving, intact black community that they're protecting? Where does it exist? Where's this Tulsa, Oklahoma? Where's this Main Street with black businesses on each side and with a 98% employment rate and only 2% unemployment? Like where is this place? Show it to me. Where is this going on? Where is this epicenter of black prosperity and thriving? I know somebody's gonna be like, Atlanta, right? I know somebody's gonna jump up and say that. Yeah, that's probably the closest thing. Some people would say, DC or maybe DeSoto, Texas. I saw the documentary on that. But again, I think the issue even with that is the fact that there's no vertical structures. It's all horizontal. Black businesses are horizontal. It's not top, like where, you got the guy that, he makes the t-shirts, but he gets his ink from a black vendor. And then that black vendor gets his ink from, I don't know, whoever, the chemical, the black chemical plant that, creates or distills all the hydrocarbons in order to make the ink and all that other stuff. And then, he gets his raw materials from, a black, oil company that, sells the hydrocarbons to the, the ink producer and, all that. That's a vertical structure. Black community doesn't have vertical structure. Everybody goes into business to be their own boss. And it's one of the reasons why, when you look at black businesses and you look at, how many black people are actually employed from black businesses, it's like next to nothing. You have black people who own a black business and it may be a family business, where, dad or mom, well, we started this company. They're just this power couple and, their black kids are growing up in, some affluent Atlanta suburb or something like that. But, outside of that, they don't got, 1,000 employees or some shit like it doesn't get to that level. Because first off, again, going back to the whole economic, part and black people being, excluded, and how are you going to be able to compete? You can get priced out real easy because everybody that you got to go to, is not in your community and they're not going to give you the best prices. And if they don't like you, they'll have you out of there very swiftly. Even when it comes to, Captain Solo, he's talked about, being a private contractor and, he's had a couple jobs because he wasn't a part of the white boy unions and their, the structures that they had. He had a couple times where some materials just didn't show up that were supposed to be there or some tools went missing. He's had shit like that happen, And again, when you're out there all by yourself, and all the people that, that are on the other side, or don't want you there look like another group, you can't say, oh, it's not race. It might just be they don't like competition. But again, you can't say it's not race when, clearly there's a difference between who you are and who they are. They, multiple, plural. So people want to harp on why I talk about relationships, interpersonal relationships, black love, and why that's important. If you don't have that, you have nothing. You have nothing to fight for. So with nothing to fight for, you can pretty much forget about having any conversation about, the Second Amendment and guns and, what community or whatever you're protecting. You can pretty much forget about it. Anyway, that's all I got to say. That's my video. SWP out. Or I should say, New Jersey self-defense out. Let me say that. Because that's where I'm going to post this video. Anyway, that's all I got to say. I'm out.